Sekiro, the newborn baby sibling of Demon Souls, Dark Souls and Bloodborne, is a hard game. A brutally hard game. I've spent around 3 hours with the game so far, and one thing that's evident is if you're a Soulsborne veteran, then you really need to leave that baggage at the door. Sekiro doesn't care if you've played FromSoftware's other titles. It plays from its own rulebook, and it isn't afraid to prove that straight out of the gate. I can admit, I went in a little bit cocky, waving my sword around and trying to absorb every little bit of damage that enemies threw at me. But it's not my fault, it's how I've been trained, it's how I've been conditioned by Dark Souls for years, and I realised quite quickly that it just isn't going to work in this game. Sekiro even gives you a sparring partner at the very start of the game, somewhere you can go to try out techniques and learn general button combinations. But that still wasn't enough to prepare me for the absolute onslaught that this troll enemy gave me. I'm still suffering from PTSD today. So, my initial takeaways. First off, the game is stunningly beautiful. This is the most fully realised and believable world that FromSoft have ever created. The way that grass and flowers sway in the wind, petals dance and swirl as they fall from trees, snow shakes down from branches as you zip from one perch to another. Even the gory stuff is gloriously detailed. The world feels alive. And it's a world that begs to be explored. More than ever, the setting you're dropped into feels daunting and exciting all at once. This is mainly due to the newfound verticality in Sekiro. Using your trusty grappling hook, you can scale cliffs, trees and temples with a satisfying press of a button. This new height allows you to survey your surroundings, plan your attack, and generally take in the world around you. It's here atop buildings, cliff faces and in treetops that you can truly appreciate the world that FromSoft have created. Dark Souls is always praised for the incredible interconnected world, and this seems to take that idea to the next level. Instead of simply progressing forwards, your options are overwhelming. Do you head up and scale the cliffs? Jump down into a pit to a tree branch below? The world has so many branching paths, and viewing them from a height only adds to that feeling of scale. Planning your attacks is definitely a wise way to spend your time. This isn't Dark Souls. You're not a knight anymore. No longer will bulky armour save you from the horrors of the world. In Sekiro you feel more precious than ever. One hit from the wrong enemy can easily reduce you to half health, and there's no longer an option to farm souls as a means to level up stats and push through a roadblock with a higher strength or vitality. The only option left is to learn, and learn you must. Timing is key here. Deflecting blocks need to be pulled off at exactly the right moment to chip away at an enemy's posture, eventually revealing a window for a devastating death blow. The combat here has a level of finesse, fluidity and timing that I've never encountered in a Soulsborne game, and leaving the techniques of the past behind is proving more difficult than I could have imagined. The instinct of wanting to dodge roll everything for the safety of immunity frames is a bad habit to bring into this game. You will no doubt run into several enemies early on that will stop you in your tracks. These roadblocks can mostly be avoided, but the payoff of taking down one of these generals or named enemies is far greater than the relief of skipping them. Named enemies in Sekiro drop the only real form of vitality upgrade for your protagonist: prayer beads. When you collect 4, you can trade them in to boost your overall health, meaning that although painful, it's highly recommended that you take on these generals and learn how to bring them down. combat stretches far beyond timing precise blows though. As a player, you're rewarded for taking your time to sneak around and silently dispatch enemies. For the first time in a FromSoft title, stealth is a legitimate gameplay option. In certain circumstances, I'd even say it's required. There are also incredible set-piece moments that wouldn't look out of place in a God of War title. I've encountered one in particular and was pleasantly surprised by the scope and scale of what played out. In Sekiro, you're also limited to the equipment you can use. Gone are the interchangeable armor sets and gone are the various weapon choices. In their place, you have a simple sword which carries you through the entire game. On top of this though, you have a prosthetic arm which can be upgraded and equipped with various attachments. These attachments range from an axe that can break shields to a spear which can pull off enemy armor. It's this prosthetic that you really need to get to grips with if you're to overcome some of the game's more varied enemy types. Even with your prosthetic arm kitted out with all number of devastating tools of destruction, avoiding large groups of enemies is, much like Dark Souls, still a smart idea. It's incredibly easy to become outmaneuvered, even by the simplest of foes, and find yourself struggling to fend them off. The story is another area that seems to set itself apart from everything that's come before. Gone is the vague, embedded lore, and in its place we have characters fleshing out genuine backstory and setting up plot devices that seem like they will be followed through to a resolution. It's a lot more coherent in that regard than anything Dark Souls has ever done, which for newcomers will surely be a welcome change. But of course, there are still similarities to the Soulsborne titles. Buddha statues replace bonfires as beacons of safety and hope. The boss fights are daunting but give that same well-earned feeling of accomplishment when you finally take them down. And Estus flasks are replaced with a similar healing tool called the Healing Gourd, which can be upgraded. So on and so forth. There's a huge amount of familiarity in this otherwise very different world. I have come across a few early game niggles. Nothing game-breaking or off-putting, but still something worth addressing. Sekiro does more than any other FromSoft title when it comes to teaching the player its mechanics. The problem is the rules involved with pulling off said mechanics don't seem to apply to all enemy types. For example, during my time with the game I've learned a few techniques. One such technique is the ability to stomp down on an incoming enemy's spear attack, leaving them open for a death blow. I can comfortably land this on standard spear-wielding foes, but one particular spear-wielding general seems to be completely immune to this technique. Death also seems to come with a fairly heavy burden. I have died countless times already, and with each passing batch of deaths, an NPC character falls ill to a fictional dragon rot illness. Currently, this impacts a stat called Unseen Aid, which randomly gives you a chance to retain your money and earn skills upon death. My Unseen Aid stat sits at 10% due to my repeated deaths. It remains to be seen if this will have a heavier weight as the game progresses, but it feels like a fairly brutal punishment early on. Overall, I can already feel myself starting to understand and enjoy Sekiro more and more, but it's an experience that doesn't care about your prior knowledge, and it's definitely a learning curve. In some ways, having played anything else in the Soulsborne series might actually be a downfall, as you have to quickly rewire yourself for a totally new experience. For returning fans and new players alike, there is an incredible amount to enjoy here. I just hope the initial time investment and dust yourself off and try again mentality isn't enough to turn away those players. That's all for now, guys. If you've enjoyed this video and you want to see more on Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, then please hit subscribe and drop a comment down below. I put out gaming videos weekly, and Sekiro will be at the forefront at the moment. Are you enjoying Sekiro? Finding it more difficult than Dark Souls? Let me know. Let's have a conversation and see if we can't overcome this fantastic new game together. Until next time, I'm Benjo, and this has been my Sekiro First Impressions.